Under the sterile blue dome of the Galactic Council, hundreds of species watched the trial unfold in smug silence. The accused stood alone in the center, human, female, unarmed, bloodied. Her once white shirt bore the red signature of cruelty. Her eyes scanned the chamber, not in fear, but in absolute stillness. They had stripped her of her name, her rank, her dignity, and expected submission. She gave them none of it. The Vortari magistrate clicked its talons, beginning the judgment ritual. The Terran operative stands convicted of high espionage, genetic subversion, and interspecies incitement. Sentence: irreversible cerebral dissection. Gasps filled the room, but not from the humans. There were none present. Not a single ambassador. Not one ship. The galaxy had dismissed humanity's silence as cowardice. She looked up as the ceiling shimmered. A pulse reverberated through the dome, brief, unseen, but deeply felt. Some species winced. Others scanned the room nervously. The magistrate's claws trembled. Security mechs activated, but their limbs locked mid-motion, freezing in place. No alarms sounded. No warnings triggered. From the chamber's great entryway came a single figure, tall, precise, and encased in matte armor that reflected nothing. No insignia, no color, no name. Only red gloves, crimson and clean. The crowd stirred uneasily. The magistrate hissed. "This intrusion violates." The figure raised one hand. Not to attack. Simply to silence. He stepped forward with deliberate calm. One by one, alien representatives fell quiet. The woman's eyes widened, not with surprise but relief. He walked past guards that couldn't move, machines that couldn't process him. Reaching the platform, he stood beside her. Blood smeared her face, and she shook as he lifted her chin gently. No words. Just recognition. Then he turned. "You attacked our woman." The statement echoed unnaturally. It wasn't loud, but it carried finality. Some delegates stood in protest. A few laughed. "A woman? You speak as if we insulted a concept, not a unit of war." "You did more than insult," he replied. "You touched something sacred." Laughter spread across the far benches, thin, nervous laughter. A representative from the Draval Syndicate stood. "If she is sacred, then your species must be built of glass." "Glass shatters only once," the human said. He tapped his wrist. The room dimmed. Every screen around the chamber flickered to life, live feeds from across the galaxy. Draval fuel rings, Zyri shipyards, Trinex orbital vaults, all detonating in silence. No fanfare. No smoke. Just erasure. Delegates screamed. Some rose to flee, only to find exits sealed. Others activated implants to call for reinforcement. Nothing answered. "You built this council on the assumption that humanity would fear your consensus. You mistook our patience for compliance, our restraint for submission. You dissected her. You paraded her. You branded her DNA and thought we would negotiate." The Vortari magistrate trembled. "This is an act of planetary terror. You drew first blood." He motioned to the woman. She stood taller now, straightening her torn shirt with one red-streaked hand. He removed her restraints. The red gloves slid over the clamps and they dissolved into ash. Her hand brushed his briefly, but no words passed between them. "You consider yourselves enlightened," the general said. "But you failed the oldest test. You thought she was alone." A low hum began to rise. Outside the chamber, dozens of shadows passed over the domed ceiling. Ships, hundreds, no engines, no emissions, no flags. Each the length of a continent. The chamber shuddered as the gravitational pressure increased. Delegates fell to their knees. The Vortari screeched something into its comlink. No response. "We have watched you enslave the weak," the general continued. "We watched you hunt for sport, exploit worlds, sterilize ecosystems. We waited. Until now. Now we remind you what it means to provoke a united humanity." The delegate from the Harkari Empire stood, shouting, "This is vengeance. Not justice." "You think so?" He turned to the woman. Tell them. She stepped forward. Her voice, broken and hoarse, still cut through the silence. You violated my body. You cut into my spine to read my memories. You forced my face into your broadcast. And through all of it, I remained human. You wanted to break us through me. But I am not the one who's broken now. She turned her eyes to each alien in the room. Some looked away. Others, for the first time, looked afraid. The general's hand moved again. More screens. More devastation. The camera feeds didn't linger on explosions or death. Just aftermath, perfect, surgical erasure. Empty cities. Dark moons. Collapsed AI grids. You've mistaken kindness for cowardice. Again and again, your empires rise by preying on those who won't hit back. But humans never forget their own. Especially not her. The chamber floor split open. Rising from the center came 7 black cases. Each opened in unison, revealing bound alien officials, those who authorized her capture. Their faces, once proud, now gray with fear. You gave her no trial. You shall receive none. Delegates pleaded. Some invoked treaties. One tried to barter. No laws apply to the aftermath of war, the general said. This is the consequence of your choices. He raised his hand. The platform under the accused officials shifted. A low hum, then silence. They were gone, dust scattered into the air. You were warned when you entered the galaxy's outer rim. Our territories were marked. You crossed them. You took her. And now you see the cost. No applause followed. No protest rose. Only silence. The woman stepped beside him, steadier now. I am not your warning. I am the proof that we do not beg. We do not kneel. We do not break. He tapped a final command. The council doors opened. Not for escape, but to show the gathered thousands what waited beyond. An endless fleet in still formation. Silent. Watching. Unmoving. A fleet that hadn't even fired yet. You have one choice left, the general said. Honor her and this ends. Or deny her and it continues. The magistrate dropped its staff. No words came. The sentence had already been delivered. The general nodded once. Then turned to the woman. Let's go. Together they walked from the chamber. Behind them, 1,000 alien eyes remained fixed, not on the departing figure, but on the blood on her shirt and the silence that had followed her scream. Because now they understood. She was never just one woman. She was the line they should never have crossed. The war didn't begin with a declaration. It began with a message broadcast simultaneously across every galactic channel, in every tongue known, even the dead ones. The message was simple. It showed the image of the woman, alive, walking out of the council chamber beside the general. Then the words followed. Humanity responds. No fleet emerged instantly. No immediate strikes followed. But entire systems froze. Economies halted. Embassies disconnected from human AIs were now blind. Planets within 10 jumps of Earth began evacuations, though no one had yet heard a shot. They assumed the threat would come through fleet, through dreadnoughts and kinetic bombardment. But humanity struck differently. On the second day, the Skell Dominion's harvest moons stopped rotating. Their gravity wells failed, not due to sabotage, but entropy acceleration, as if time had fast-forwarded. On the third, the Vanari Primebank's ledger collapsed. Centuries of galactic credit gone. Financial systems, rooted in neural consensus blocks, were rewritten. Not erased, reversed. Every theft committed by a galactic empire was unspent. Fortunes stolen were redistributed. Entire crime families watched their assets flow into colonies they had starved for generations. But it wasn't about wealth. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity didn't fight for conquest. They fought for correction. The general issued no demands. No speeches. Only precise, surgical retaliation. The Harkari's mind vaults, once sealed behind quantum recursion, cracked open in real time. Hidden war crimes bled across the open net. Slave farms. Bioexperiments. Discarded species bred only for extinction tests. The woman, whose name still hadn't been released, stood beside him each time, a silent sentinel of reckoning. Resistance formed quickly. Coalitions once at war with each other united. The Draval, Trinex, Vortari, and Kexari formed a joint strike fleet of over 70,000 ships. Their strategy was total: decapitate Earth's orbital defense network, strike the moon-based command, deploy ground troops, and take hostages to force a ceasefire. They never reached orbit. Above Mars, the void opened. It wasn't a wormhole, nor a ship. It was something different. A structure, living and artificial. Blacker than black. It absorbed the fleet's scans without returning anything. Then it split. Light refracted into fractal geometries, and ships simply ceased. No explosion. No wreckage. Just absence. The fleet vanished, and with it, the illusion of technological parity. The Council called emergency sessions. The remaining powers attempted back-channel diplomacy. Nothing went through. Humanity wasn't listening. They were executing. System by system. But only those who had voted for the woman's sentence. Those who had remained silent found their communication restored. Food shipments delivered. Hospitals restocked. Power grids repaired. It confused them. A Harkari prince said, "They are hunting by moral calculus. Vengeance bound by logic." The woman, now referred to by Galactic media as the Catalyst, didn't give interviews. She attended no ceremonies. She visited only the worlds most brutalized by the Council's neglect. Children mutilated by biolabs. Whole species clipped at the genome level to remain in servitude. She walked among them, unguarded. She carried no weapons. Her presence alone rerouted fleet. On the 17th day, the Council voted to dissolve itself. Panic rose. Systems without law reverted to tribal war. Pirate factions took control of trade route. But then something unexpected happened. Human ships arrived, not to destroy but to assist. They deployed clean water nanites, dropped atmosphere stabilizers, left behind solar archives filled with unrestricted knowledge. They didn't demand loyalty. They didn't raise flags. They simply said, "We remember who helped her." And who didn't. An alien governor asked a human envoy, "Is this peace, then?" The envoy's response was quiet. "No. This is memory. Peace is still earned." The woman sat in a chamber on the rim of the Orion sector. Her presence alone stabilized entire planetary sectors. The general stood behind her, silent, always watching. Around them, new leaders from liberated systems met, not as subjects, but equals. The woman never presided. She only listened. The first species to issue an apology was the Trinex. They admitted to being cowards. They sent reparations. But she said nothing. Only watched. Then stood and walked out. They wept. And still, she said nothing. Their shame needed no reply. What began as retribution now transformed into doctrine. Humanity did not erase empires out of anger. They dismantled systems to rebuild order. And in that process, the most feared weapon was not the general. Not the fleets. Not the black structure beyond Mars. It was her. Her presence rewrote power structures. Her silence was judgment. And when she spoke, even suns seemed to dim. On the 28th day, one of the last warlords from the original council, a Vortari high strategist, issued a challenge. He broadcasted across 6 quadrants, mocking the woman, daring her to face him without protection. He wanted spectacle, proof of weakness. She accepted. She arrived unarmed. The strategist unleashed beasts engineered to tear ships apart. They circled her, snarling, salivating. Then one by one, they stopped, backed away. Saturday. She walked past them. The warlord fired. Her blood hit the floor again. And she kept walking. He fired again. And she kept walking. Her blood stained the ground, just like it had the first time. Only this time, she stopped in front of him, broken, bleeding, and smiled. "You only know how to harm. We were taught how to endure." Behind her, the air warped. The general appeared, and with him, judgment. But she raised her hand. No. The warlord's body was not destroyed. He lived. But paralyzed. Muted. Conscious. She whispered to him, "You will never cause again." Then she collapsed. The general caught her before she hit the ground. For the first time, across every relay the galaxy saw it. The pain in his face. Not fury. Not tactics. But the grief of someone who had waited too long to save what mattered. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Every remaining system received the same message. She is human. She was harmed. She survived. And now you must choose. Fix what you broke, or we finish what we started. No one dared test the alternative. The galaxy entered a silence it hadn't known in centuries. Not of peace, but of suspension, an inhale held too long. Systems operated with caution, entire governments restructured, and supply routes reorganized themselves around a single understanding. Whatever humanity had become, it no longer played by galactic norms. It rewrote them. And she, branded, dissected, and humiliated, was now the gravity holding it all in place. The woman hadn't spoken in 13 days. Her last words had ended a warlord's voice forever. Since then, she remained confined to a high-orbit medframe above Titan, her blood slowly regenerating cell by cell. The damage hadn't just been physical. The warlord's neuroshards had laced her spine with data-eating pathogens, hoping to erase her identity. But they failed. Not just because humanity's technology healed her, but because her memory was no longer hers alone. Across the void, survivors of liberated worlds began mirroring her words. Entire rebel broadcasts repeated her testimony verbatim. Translations spread from human colonies to forgotten asteroid prisons. Her pain wasn't just endured, it became a script, an oath. We do not kneel. We do not beg. We do not break. Words that once belonged to one became the code of millions. But tension brewed. The remnants of the former council weren't gone. They had retreated into deep systems, rebuilding in dark silence. A conclave formed, 23 empires stripped of fleets, funds, and pride. But not desperation. Their proposal was swift. Unleash the Apex Protocol, an ancient bioartifact created long before humanity reached space. A weapon not aimed at worlds, but minds. A consciousness virus engineered to rewrite will itself. If humanity refused to kneel, they would remove the instinct to stand. One of the conclave members warned the others, "This is suicide. If they detect it before activation." "They won't," said another. "She's down. The general is distracted. The fleets are watching borders, not stars." The capsule launched in silence, buried inside cometary dust, veiled by neutrino echoes. No signature. No trace. Aimed not at Earth, but at Jupiter's moon where she healed. It would never arrive. Above Saturn's rings, a dormant satellite flickered. Not military. Not even functional. It simply sent a pulse, an ancient human signal no longer used. But every human ship in 1,000 systems stopped, turned, then moved. Before the protocol reached Titan, it was devoured, atomized by a ship shaped like a shard of void. The general had never stopped watching. He hadn't spoken since she collapsed, but he didn't need to. He had prepared for betrayal. What followed wasn't war. It was instruction. Each member of the conclave woke to find their security systems inverted. AI guardians now answered to unknown human protocols. Their personal guards, grown in secret, now followed outside commands. And worst of all, their own memories began bleeding out through dream capture implants. Every secret, every crime, every betrayal projected into the open net. No deaths, just truth. One screamed into the void, "Kill us or stop this madness." The general responded once. "This is mercy." Then the reckoning began. Not with ships, not with fire, but with acknowledgement. Children born in breeding pits were brought forward, their genetic chains cut, their growth inhibitors undone. Species long catalogued as subintelligent were uplifted within hours using human accelerant code. Stars that had been slowly collapsed to preserve energy monopolies were reignited, and their systems returned to indigenous inhabitants. One by one, humanity turned injustice inside out, not just erasing it but undoing it. And through it all, she watched. Finally, she awoke. Her body moved slowly, weaker than it had been, but her voice returned sharper. Her first words weren't dramatic. She didn't address the galaxy. She didn't give speeches. She simply whispered, "We're not done yet." And they knew she meant it. She returned to the stars. This time not as a symbol, but as a force. On her first reappearance, she entered the ruins of the council hall alone. The same place where her blood had been spilled. The same place where silence had once mocked her. This time, it was rebuilt, restored not as a symbol of control, but of balance. And at its center, she stood before representatives not of empires, but of planets. Not rulers, but people. She said nothing. Instead, she placed a single item on the center platform. Her original shirt, still stained, never washed. Then she stepped back. Everyone understood. The galaxy had already changed. Now it had to remember why. The new assembly didn't crown her. Didn't name her ruler. They didn't dare. What they did instead was form a pact, etched in every language known, even those lost. A pact built not on territory or trade, but on accountability. The pact had one clause above all. If harm returns to our kind, especially to one of ours, we answer not as states but as species, as one. She didn't remain in politics. She refused. Instead, she traveled. To systems still healing. To planets abandoned. She walked alone into places that once feared even the idea of resistance. And she listened. Not as a warrior. Not as a martyr. But as a human. And with every step, those who had been silenced began to speak again. She visited the site of the old breeding rings. Helped burn them herself. She held the hands of clones once programmed for war, now learning music. She stood by orphans of forgotten civil wars, who now told stories of stars instead of scars. And still, she never asked for thanks. The general retired. He disappeared without ceremony. Some said he returned to Earth. Others whispered he never existed at all outside her protection. But it didn't matter. Because what mattered had already been set in motion. The galaxy knew one undeniable truth now. That the worst mistake it ever made wasn't attacking Earth, or its colonies, or even launching fleet. The worst mistake was believing that one human woman could be harmed without consequence. That belief had cost them everything. Years passed. She grew older. The galaxies stabilized under new systems, bound not by dominance, but by mutual memory. Empires never returned. Councils never reformed. Instead, networks of care grew, watched by millions who wore her words on their tongues like vows. Then one day she vanished. No funeral. No body. Just an empty ship drifting near the black structure beyond Mars, the one that had once swallowed a fleet. On its hull, someone had carved a final message in old Terran script. "We warned you. Never touch what we love." No one ever did again.